football story that we found interesting enough that on this day we felt the need to have this conversation. Shedeur Sanders is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. A pair of speeding citations. He was stopped by police on Tuesday for allegedly going 101 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone. And we learned yesterday that he had been stopped on June 6th for going 91 in a 65, and he also didn't appear in court for that first citation, and he was fined for that. So let us bring in a football crew that we've put together for you this morning here. Mike Tannenbaum, Dominique Foxworth, and Dan Graziano. I will start with you. I know you have been making some phone calls. This is a player we've talked so much about for so many reasons over the last couple of months and beyond that. What were you hearing yesterday?
So, I mean, a couple things. One, let's not underrate the alleged infraction. People want to say it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. You're driving around greater Cleveland, Ohio at 100 miles an hour. You could literally kill someone, and that's not being dramatic. Henry Ruggs was in the news this week on special release talking to try and convince people to help them avoid the tragic mistake that he made. Now, that said, you don't want to sit here and be a scold either. He's 23 years old. I have sons that are almost that age. I know for a fact that young men that age do dumb things. Doesn't make them bad people. Doesn't mean he should be cut. Doesn't mean anything like that. If you're the Browns, you're sitting with Shedeur Sanders and you're saying, look, man, you can't do this. When you're out in the community, you represent us, you represent our franchise. Everything you do matters, reflects on us as coaches, as a front office, as your teammates. So that's part of what they're giving him at this point. The question is, of course, does he learn from it going forward? And as it pertains to his standing on the football team and in the NFL, the thing people have to remember, he's a fifth-round pick. Not every fifth-round pick makes the team. He has to perform at a high level, and in that situation, you don't get a lot of rope in terms of what the organization or what the league will put up with in terms of your behavior away from the facility. So hopefully he's learning from this and the mistakes won't be repeated, and he can focus on just trying to make the team and be the starting quarterback as soon as possible.
Mike T., if you were running that organization as you did in two different places, what would you say to him?
I would say, as Mark Schlereth used to describe preseason games, it does.
Oh, no. Okay,
but it matters, and here's why. When we drafted players,
right, Cindy, let's try and get his shot fixed up there if we can, obviously, because it's important. I know what he's going to say, and I want you to hear it, with his signal working well. Dominique, the question I will come to you with very simply, as a longtime player and one who's been around and all the rest of that. Like sometimes I'll say, is this something or is this nothing? I shouldn't use the word nothing, as Graziano pointed out. Yeah. It's most certainly not nothing. But from a football perspective, how much of a big deal should we make of this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it should be a big deal from a football perspective. I think that Dan did a good job of expressing how serious it could be and also making sure that we understand that we shouldn't overreact and act as if this is some sort of blight on his character. Like, young men do foolish things. I was a young man who also went really fast in cars and was fortunate enough to not get into any trouble. But I'm most surprised by it being this particular young man. Like, I would have thought that was one of the things that we kind of knew about him was he was a professional. He's a guy who's been around the game long enough because of his father, and we didn't expect him to make these type of poor decisions. But again, we shouldn't write him off because of it, because it hasn't gone completely.
Okay, we're having that kind of morning here, I see. So we've lost Dominique. Now let's try Mike Tannenbaum again in this game of whack-a-mole to see whose signal is working this morning. Mike T., we'll try it again. What would you say to him if you were the GM now in Cleveland?
I would say, look, when we bring him in, as the head coach or the quarterback, you're the most important employee of a $6 billion enterprise, and how you handle things on and off the field matter. And Mark Schlereth used to say, Greeny, preseason games, they don't count, but they matter. And how you comport yourself off the field matters. And to have this happen twice would be a concern. It's not the end of the road. But let me bring you into what typically happens at the end of this time of year. You set your roster and your initial sort of reps for training camp. And if they're sitting there in Cleveland, Greeny, and they're saying Dylan Gabriel's a third-round pick, he's done well, Shedeur Sanders has done well on the field, but he's had these two issues off the field, albeit minor, they'll give more reps to Dylan Gabriel. Remember, every general manager has one formula on their board. Production equals tolerance. And as Graz mentioned, he's a fifth-round pick. He has not produced yet.
Go ahead, Dominique. We've got you back again. Finish up your thought, if you would.
Yeah, I think you should just ask questions of Dan Graziano, but hopefully my signal holds on. I think that it's what it always comes down to in football is how good can you play. Shedeur, we're hearing about practice things. We don't know how good he actually is going to be. If he plays really well, then obviously they're going to keep him. They'll deal with these relatively minor infractions as long as he's able to produce. And I'm really shocked that this is the particular player that is having the issue because we always thought of him as a guy who's been around the game and a very professional guy who's going to make these decisions and has dealt with this type of spotlight since he was on reality shows as a teenager. So I'm a little surprised by it, and I think that it's probably not going to be a huge issue for him. It really boils down to how many touchdowns he's going to be able to throw, honestly.
Graziano, put a ribbon on it.
Yeah, I think that's the key. But he's not starting from a position of strength in that regard. He's not, right. Just to use a proximate example, his father, who was the 5th overall pick in the draft, one of the greatest talents the game has ever seen. You know, he has to realize, Shedeur Sanders does, that this was not an organization that went into the draft saying, we've got to get this guy. They were in the 5th round saying, well, we might as well take this guy because what if? So that puts you in a very different position in terms of how the team feels about you and how the team feels about, you know, incidents like this and stuff that goes on off the field. So there's not as much margin for error for Shedeur Sanders as there would have been if he had been, you know, the pick that we thought he was going to be, 1st round, high 2nd round. And I think that's important for people to keep in mind as well when we talk about this situation.
All right. I applaud, Graziano, both your thoughts and your internet provider. Well done, guys. Thank you for jumping in. Have a great weekend.
How's it going, everybody? Villa Sports Network here. Just want to thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Also want to kind of remind you to don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on the video if you like as well. But regardless of the fact, thank you again for your support, and hope to see you on the next video.